safety issue.
Sorry, y'all, Facebook and Zoom are not getting involved. I didn't see that.
Right, okay.
Okay. Mike, you're good to go?
Okay, first order of business is called order. Approval of the agenda, meeting motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda and ask the person up person.
Okay, second?
Yeah.
Any second? Second, okay. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed. Next is approval of the minutes from June 4th. Any motion?
I so move.
Got motion here. Any second? Second. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Well, on the second page, so it's already going on fast. Staff report. Fire department. Sir.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Evans from Firehouse 22 down the street.
You might go up the podium so we can see you. If you catch on fire, selection.
Right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Like I said, I'm Captain Evans from Firehouse 22. Just want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the fire department. I do want to make one note of what some of the members encountered recently. I don't know if you heard about the firemen that were injured by a falling tree the other day. They were responding to a medical call. A patient had fallen out of a tree while he was trimming the tree. They heard a crack. They looked up. They saw this big branch about to fall. One of the members was able to move a paramedic student out of the way, and the other fireman covered the injured patient. And thankfully, no major injuries. They were off work for a shift. And I came back, so just wanted to highlight some of the things that our ladies and gentlemen are doing out there on the street in service to the citizens. We know summer's here, so just make sure we're talking to your friends and neighbors about staying hydrated and watching working in the heat. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke can come on pretty quick. And probably the big thing right now is the fireworks ordinance, and I believe, sir, you were part of the committee last year. That worked through this. So just to cover that, aerial fireworks are allowed to be bought and shot in the city limits from July 3rd to July 5th. Hours of 10 a.m. to midnight. Outside of those hours, aerial fireworks are not allowed and citations will be written. Other fireworks can be shot from June 27th to July 6th, the same hours. During from the 3rd to the 6th, there will be teams of firemen and police officers patrolling and enforcing. Citations will be written for any of those folks who choose not to follow the written ordinance. From mid-May through mid-June, there were 10 fires that were investigated in District 3. 4 of those had an accidental cause, 3 were undetermined, and 3 were determined to be arson fire of some sorts. And that is all I have. If there's any questions?
Any questions from the jam? Hearing none. Any questions from the general public?
What's the number, instead of calling 911?
Thank you. Yeah, the non-emergency number is 316-290-1011. That's
you.
from June 27th to July 6th, 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. That line will be on.
Any other questions? Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, have a happy 4th of July and a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, just a mic. No, no.
I had to clarify.
Oh,
Everybody.
Our next is the Wichita Police Department, Officer Burger.
Officer Berger, sir?
You
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
can't see you, but we can hear you.
Hold on one moment. How about now?
Now,
Yeah,
All right, good. Sorry. I had
It
to
was-
click the button. I had to click the button there. So, my name's Phil Berger. I'm with East Community Policing. And I don't have a whole lot of earth-shattering information. So I did take a quick look at the DAB3 crime stats, and I will touch base just briefly on those. Part 1, violent, we're only up 1%, and that single percentage is coming from an aggravated assault. Probably maybe like a road rage incident where a firearm was displayed. No person's injured. It just essentially placing somebody in fear. That's only up 1%. Nothing alarming by any means. But the good part of the crime stats I like to see are the Part 1 property are down 13% and overall down a percentage. So I think getting the word around to people, securing your valuables in your cars, I think that's hopefully working its way around. And we're not seeing a spike in those types of crimes. Usually around this time with kids being out of school, we usually see maybe an increase in those. But for DAB3 to be down 13%, I think is really, really, really good to see. So we're not seeing a sharp spike in property crimes of opportunity. I think we have, at least 40 slated for the next academy class, which is really good. It's double my class 11 years ago. So to get 40 people hopefully slated for our next class is really, really awesome. So hopefully we can get those seats filled, and hopefully after 6 months they can join the streets here on their field training programs, and hopefully have 40 more officers out there on the streets for us in the community. So I really don't have anything too much else to pass on. I could take some questions if anybody has any.
Anybody got any questions from the board? Hearing none, any from the general public? I guess I don't have any questions tonight. Go out and be safe.
All right. Hey, appreciate it, folks. Have a good 4th.
You too. Thank you, officer.
Yeah, thank you.
Public library, my favorite.
Thank you. All right, I am Robin Duster. I'm the Community Services Librarian from the Walters branch of the Wichita Public Library here in District 3. Insofar as remodeling efforts at the Wichita Public Library, they are nearing completion. The Alfred branch on South Meridian reopened to the public last month after several months of construction to update the interior design, renovate the teen section and public computing area, add more meeting and study rooms, and install new shelving, furniture, and artwork. And a grand reopening celebration is anticipated to take place in August, with more details to come soon. So that leaves the Rockwell Branch Library and East 9th as the only branch remaining under construction. It's been temporarily closed since March 2025, and it's progressing well, and it's going to be reopening in fall 2025. Summer reading at the library is off to a great start. Enrollment in the program is up compared to last year, with thousands of readers of all ages tracking their reading. Participants who have completed their reading goals for the summer can now submit their lots at any library locations until July 31st to get their free prizes and receive entry into a grand prize drawing that will occur in August. And then even though the summer reading program ends this month, there's still plenty of time to get started. You can pick up a reading log at any branch or download them at wichitalibrary.org. And the summer library programs include educational activities, crafting, and performances throughout Wichita. For more information on how to get involved with the library this summer, you can go to wichitalibrary.org/summer reading. And then the Friends of the Wichita Public Library began selling Love Your Library yard signs yesterday, July 1st, to raise awareness of library services and funds for programming, signs are available for purchase at the used bookstore or the Advanced Learning Library for $20, in addition to the library themed t-shirts already available for $25. We hope you show the library some love and display your signs with pride. And then on to Walters specific updates. The Knitting and Crochet group continues to meet at Walters from 11 to 1 p.m. each Wednesday, reading your current project and craft. On Tuesday, July 1st, Walters hosted its second of 3 Master Gardener Summer programs, basic herb gardening. We had about 20 people, so it was amazing turnout. The conclusion to the series will be the 3 Bears of Watering on Tuesday, August 5th from 2 to 3. Summer Literacy League continues until July 23rd, and that's a program designed for second to third graders to increase their literacy skills and to decrease the summer slide literacy skills, to keep them reading with volunteers throughout the summer, and they can get prizes for coming to sessions, including entries into a grand prize drawing for a bike at the end of the summer. You can register at wichitalibrary.org/events or by calling us. Next Step Alliance is providing digital skills workshops at the Walters branch every other Wednesday this summer. The next will be on Microsoft Word on Wednesday, July 16th from 4:30 to 6:30. They will also have a session on AI usage on July 30th from 4:30 to 6:30. These are also registered events. You can register online at wichitalibrary.org/events or by calling 316-261-8500. And lastly, our next afternoon board game session is on Saturday, July 19th from 12:30 to 2:30. It's for all ages, and you can feel free to drop in anytime throughout the 2-hour block.
I have a question.
Yes.
In a nutshell, explain the experience passes again this year, how.
Yes, okay, so the experience passes are where we have partnered with several different local organizations, including the Sedgwick County Zoo, the Exploration Place, Art Museum, Cowtown, several other local organizations, and you're able to check out the passes at your local branch. They have some that are available on a first come, first served basis, others that you have to be placed on a hold list for. When you check them out, they usually get at least a family in, so at least like 2 adults, 2 children, but each one has a different number of kids and adults they allow in, and you can check them out for 7 days, and they are completely free.
Okay. Thank you. I've had some people ask already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, any questions from the public? Yes. You did your job. Thank you.
Okay, we have a new staff report being added. It will be a written one, yes.
This is preparing for live stream, our name, what are we not?
It's live streaming, it's just being filmed. Yeah, so Strategic Communications is gonna start sending us a written update every month. So for the first one here in July, paid parking is beginning downtown. So it's officially begun. The first phase of equipment has been installed on Emporia and St. Francis from William to First Street and on Douglas from Market to Santa Fe. Additional installation phases will be announced as that information becomes available. There are a variety of payment options depending on where you park. There are pay stations, meters, and pay by app options. If you download the Park Mobile or Pay by Phone app, you get 1 hour free parking each day with the purchase of a 1 hour parking on public streets and public parking lots. Visit parkwichita.com for more information. The hours of operation for paid parking are Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Friday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. With the exception of event parking, there will not be a charge for parking outside of the aforementioned hours of operation. The rates, except for when event parking rates apply, are $1 per hour, $5 daily for public parking lots, or $10 daily for public parking structures. The other big update is our City of Wichita ID. The City of Wichita now offers a free low barrier ID to enable residents to utilize city services and help support their full participation in society. The card will also promote community pride, allowing residents to feel a sense of ownership and provide a tangible form of identification. The card is not valid for state ID and may not be used for voting or registering to vote. The I-9 compliant card will facilitate employment eligibility verification, providing job opportunities to individuals currently without verified identification. The City of Wichita ID is free and available to all Wichita residents ages 14 and older. Cards are available at City Hall, Municipal Court Desk on the first floor, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to noon, and 1 to 4:30 p.m.
We can all get one of those?
Every resident can get one.
Make a small
Any questions from the board?
Just, would it be possible in the future to expand that and make it available through the library system? Just to make it easier for people to get them. It's not always easy to get downtown.
Right. The next station that we're putting it in at, I believe, is the MAC, the Multi-Agency Center. Yeah, that's the Second Light. That's rebranded now, Second Light. That was kind of the impetus behind this, was to give people, houseless people, an opportunity to get an ID. That way they can get jobs, qualify for their I-9. After that, I think we're looking at potentially getting into the libraries. There's been some chatter about also maybe combining it with a library card, bus pass. There'll be a little bit of work to do to get that ironed out as well, but this is the first step here, so I do think we're going to try and get it more accessible to people around the city. We did use ARPA money to buy the equipment, so if we did expand it any more than the equipment that we've already ordered, that would have to be something we'd work out in the budget as well.
How much did that cost?
It's a couple $1,000 just for the equipment alone. And obviously all the staff time and energy that's gone into it.
Does it have a star on it, please?
What?
It has a hologram.
Yeah, don't have a star for flying.
Like the real
Yeah.
ID? No, it's not like that. It's not for voting. It's not a state ID. That was one of the delays with it, because we actually tried to look at this 3 years ago. And the state had passed a law cracking down on this municipal IDs. So we got some other legal opinions. We worked it out. Not a voting ID. That was one of the main concerns that people had, was that it would be used for a voting ID. So this is I-9 eligible, so it is eligible so you can help get your federal programs, your federal funding that you qualify for, SNAP and whatnot. But we also had to make sure that we worked within the state law, existing state law, for it to be legal.
Just go to city courthouse to get that?
The what?
Just go to city courthouse?
City Hall.
City Hall, yeah, I think we're setting up a second kiosk even. It's been up for 2 days now, and the line's in there. You go in there and plenty of lines, plenty of people waiting to get it, so and we haven't even really advertised it yet, so, yeah.
Question, how do they validate that that's actually their address, and not just some address they're putting on your ID?
So they do have to provide some documentation to the greatest extent that they can, obviously, as Councilman indicated, right? The initial push around this was for the purposes of the unhoused, right? So they may not have a lot of documentation. They may have sort of parts and pieces of documentation. We can verify documentation through resources, scan documents, and some of their casework management, those kind of things. So there's a little bit of work that goes into actually doing the research for those that are maybe unhoused. But for the most part, just obtaining it, maybe it's a utility bill, maybe some documentation as the I-9 form by requires that documentation to be filed. That's the process.
So if they're unhoused, how do you have an address to attach to that card, that ID?
So not every card has an address. One of the things that we've been talking about using is, for example, Second Light or some other shelter, for example, as an address, but not every ID will necessarily have an address. We'll try to the greatest extent we can to put as much information on there as possible. But this is, as the councilman indicated, this is sort of the initial push and sort of beta test into seeing how far this program can go.
And I believe PO boxes as well.
Yes.
Yeah, or you can list the PO box, and that way you can get your official documents sent to that PO box.
So one last question, I'm sorry. Is this information going to be accessible by the police department? Like if they need to look up some of this information, are they gonna have this in correlation, like, our IDs are all uploaded in their database, is this also going to be accessible to the police department if they need to verify who this person is and?
It's a great question. I don't know if that question has been asked yet. I'll have to look into that. I don't think that it's been incorporated to police database, right? Because they're accessing the state's DL records and stuff like that. That might be something we can look into. I know that with a lot of individuals who may be unhoused, there's a separate database system, and that information is available in there, and that's how we can kind of make copies and duplicates and those kind of things. There's a separate database specifically for the caseworkers to help with those that are unhoused. But that's a good question. We'll have to see whether or not it's something we can incorporate.
I think it would make sense because if it is a city of Wichita identification, I would think that even first responders would have access to information in case say they find this person unconscious or something.
Yeah.
They don't know who is this, you know? I don't know. I just think it'd be a good way to keep the lines connected.
We'll inquire into that and see.
Good question from John.
Just, is there an expiration date on this and age limits?
14.
14, and no, I don't believe there's an expiration date.
There is on this one. It was issued the 26th of June of this year, and it expires June 26th of 2028.
Just, I was just thinking something to keep the database,
Current.
updated, yeah.
You don't get softball questions at that 3.
I was not here prepared to answer municipal.
Right, just to be really honest, Stratcom sent this for me just to read to you all, anticipating you would not have questions, so.
But then
I happen to be very lucky that Mike and Troy are willing to answer all this, otherwise I'd be writing down a lot of stuff.
Explain again, what is the purpose of it? I mean, if you, I can see if you are homeless and get hurt or something, this would certainly help to identify you. But what, other than that, what would be?
One of the primary purposes for employment.
Yeah, one of the big barriers that people have towards getting jobs is valid IDs, and this will work to help with recruitment, with job training and whatnot and applications.
I have two questions. One's for you. Along with her grilling you about the police, are they gonna instruct the police to ask for these IDs?
There's not a. I'm gonna try to answer that question in a way where, I guess it depends on the circumstances and the situation in which law enforcement is engaging with an individual where identification may be desired. It's not a requirement that an individual have.
It's not like a car accident where you have to prove you have the ability to drive a car if you're in an accident, right?
Correct. Yeah, no, it's not a driver's license, it's not a voter ID, it's not a requirement of any way, shape, or form. It's really a voluntary program that allows people to obtain an identification card to help with employment or to help obtain other resources, right? Establishing residency. So there's the nuances around the program. Again, it's a voluntary program, sort of the first iteration of that. This is sort of the beta test. We've tried to be as thoughtful as possible around all of the uses and the intentions and traps associated with some of this abuse of this in some way, shape, or form.
We have heard stories where we encounter people that are having a mental problem.
Sure.
They may know their name, but they're not willing to give it. But it would help out to find out who they belong to and stuff like this. I'm saying that. My second question is, in the paid parking downtown area story, they never ever mention handicap. What is handicap doing with this paid parking? Are they paying now? Or they still have?
So I'm gonna answer that in two ways, right? On street, right? No, handicap parking is exempt. Under state statute, accessible parking is exempt from having to pay, whether you're in an accessible space or otherwise. If you've got a plate that displays the accessible, or if you have a hang tag, you will not get a citation on street for not paying. There's limitations, that statute, there are limitations based on the technology that we have available to us. So let me explain. If you pull into a parking garage and you pull up to the, what they call park equipment, PARC, not to be confused with Parks and Recreation, right? You pull up to a park equipment and you push a button to get a tag, and you pull that tag and the control arm lifts up and you pull into the garage. That doesn't know that you're handicapped or an accessible vehicle. Now, there's spaces within a garage that allow you to park for the convenience, but the equipment doesn't know that. So when then you go to exit the garage and you put the ticket, it doesn't know that so you have to pay. So there are going to be some cases in which handicap accessible vehicle will have to pay for parking, but the on-street parking where it's sort of, you aren't limited by the technology, and it's just either there's a kiosk or there's a handicap parking. No, they do not have to pay.
Thank you.
I have one last question, I'm sorry. It's about this Wichita ID. So if it's geared more towards people that are unhoused, how is the information getting out that this is an option?
So primarily this is word of mouth, first and foremost, right? There are social media channels. Surprisingly, a lot of folks who may be unhoused still have access to a phone, case management, so on and so forth. So we're working with all of our community partners to kind of spread the word. They've been involved in the process, all of that. So a lot of it's word of mouth, but there are opportunities. There are some folks who still have access to a phone and social media or access to the city's website. And so we're trying to put the message out as far and as wide as possible. Hence the reason for kind of the announcement here, even at the DABs. But a lot of it's probably going to still be word of mouth.
Have you guys ever considered maybe putting a kiosk like at the Lord's Diner or something where there's a high concentration of unhoused?
So this initial put, the equipment to manufacturing and the process. So again, there's a little bit of due diligence and research that has to go into making sure that these people are, they say they are, or at least to the greatest extent possible, right? So that takes a little bit of time. So it's not as instantaneous as maybe we're trying to make it as quick as possible, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. So we have been engaged, Lord's Diner has been involved in and is aware of the municipal ID. Again, all of our community partners that are in and around this space are aware of the municipal ID and they can communicate that to their clientele. But eventually, if we do purchase additional equipment and we can streamline the process, then obviously we can expand that out into the community. Not really sure how far reaching or what the ultimate demand will be on this. Might be 2,000 to 3,000 individuals. So we're trying to judge too how much we invest versus what the actual demand might be.
Justice Together is a group of, I think, around 50 congregations in the city and 13,000 people, 1,300 people that show up for the big assemblies to kind of kick us in the butt every once in a while. But it's, several providers like that, Open Door, a lot of people who serve this population has been part of this process. So that's kind of the plan, is that they'll spread the word as well.
Any other questions for what was it called? Citywide Communications. Okay, let's move on to public agenda, scheduled item 4. I think we have some speakers. You're limited to 5.
On the public agenda.
You have 5 minutes. We're not-
They have 10 minutes because it's 2 of them.
5 each.
You can do it.
Yay, we're tag teaming it up.
And we also have cookies here for our guests who aren't here at every meeting. Trying to keep everybody fed and happy, so feel free and please eat because otherwise I take them home and I don't really need any extra sweets, I think.
Hi there, my name is Kurt Oswald and I've been on the board of the library for about a year, District 3 here. I'm the second vice president and also the chair for the public affairs committee. So, what I put together is things that I didn't know about the library when I first got on the library board. And there's probably things on here that you guys don't know about. There's over 94 unique programs and services that are there. You can check out a book, you can check out an ebook, you can check out e-magazines, excuse me, videos and movies, watch movies online through your smart TV, through the Canopy app. We've got 3D printers, do genealogy searches, access free Wi-Fi, technology classes. You can book in the library for a one-on-one. Early learning backpacks for kids that are just learning how to read and that sort of stuff. Parents can come and get those. Low cost copies, faxes. You can use our circuit maker, Macs. We have an audiovisual studio, so you can record a podcast. You can edit a video for your own social media, or if you want to, you can record a song. I'm trying to get my grandson to record a song and use it for that. Got meeting spaces and then passport service at Alfred and Green Evergreen. So this is kind of confusing. Rockwell branch is closed right now for the remodel. Like she said earlier, it's going to be opening in fall of this year. I kind of put together the hours of each one of these. 5 of the branches are open Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock to 8 o'clock. There's one of them that's open Monday through Thursday, 11 to 7. 5 of them open on Friday and Saturday, 10 to 6. There's one of them that's open on Friday and Saturday, 11 to 3. And then the Advanced Learning Library is the only one that's open on Sundays. Everything else is closed Sunday-wise from Memorial Day through Labor Day. Those will be opening back up with hours as based on staffing that's available. So you had asked about the passes. We just used one. I've used a couple of them, but just used one to Botanica, and it saved us like $60. It was able to. I could use it for my wife and I, and then also up to 5 other people. So we took 4 of our grandkids. So it saved me $60 in admission. It didn't save me $60 though in all of the other stuff that I spent there, which was like about $80. So Wichita Art Museum, Toy Train Club Museum, Museum of the World Treasures, Botanica Exploration Place, Great Plains Transportation Museum, the Mid-America All-Indian Center, Cowtown, Old Sedgwick County Historical Museum, the zoo, and Cosmospheres, where all of those could be used at. And I mean, you just get on a way to just go to the library's website, check it out, and sometimes it'll put you on a list. I think I was on the list for Botanica for maybe 3 weeks before I was able to get one. Then there's a library of things. These are things that if you have a library card that you can check out. Radon detectors, a Finch robot, tabletop telescopes, a model kidney, heart, ear, brain, eyeball, binoculars, bird watching kits, blood pressure monitors, Chromebooks, Tony box and a Tony, and a Playaway launch pad. I mean, we just have so much that, you know, at the library that you can do. It just amazes me every time that I read one more thing about it. Then we have the Learning Bus book. It's an outreach initiative to bring library services to areas of Wichita that don't have access to a library location. You can register to book this to come to your church, a daycare, neighborhood. And I mean, I can't remember the lady's name. Do you remember her name?
Not when you're asking right now.
Anyway, she's an amazing.
Repeat, yeah.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, the bus is really cool. Because my big deal is how are they gonna keep all these books from flopping all over the place when we're driving? You know, it is really cool inside there. It's a neat layout inside for kids.
And you can get cards, you can get your library card
Yeah.
through the mobile phones.
And Wi-Fi as well. For the next thing. So she had mentioned earlier, this is the yard signs that the Friends of the Library have put together for everybody. And I have 10 of them here. If anybody'd like to purchase them, they're $20 a piece. Or if you don't want to purchase them, let me know and maybe I can work you a deal. So it's a new campaign that they're doing, and the money raised for those is going to be used for any programs at the library. So I've got 10 of those with me, and they're also promoting it on the library's Facebook page. So if you want to go out and share that post to all your family and friends, and like she said, they're down at the Advanced Learning Library at the books that's there. So that's it. I'm done. I'm going to introduce Laura and see you switch that and switch again. And my executive assistant misspelled her name, so
That's correct.
it is correct.
Everybody, this is how you spell my name. Usually misspells it, so you
Oh.
probably,
You misspelled it then.
there's no secret version, there's only one T in Wichita, okay. All right, thanks Kurt. And I also serve on the library board and I'm from District 3. I live near Griffith Elementary and Platt Park and all of that. So the reason that we're here, yes, is because there's a campaign to raise funds, but also we're just trying to sustain the library system that has been developed and already been invested in. So I think our libraries are at the heart of what helps our community have free resources to continue growing and learning for a lifetime. So that doesn't just like stop when you quit going to school or while you're in school, not over the summer, right? So the libraries are the partner with the school system and with homeschooling and all kinds of other education that help our communities stay educated and curious and have resources that are next to free, right? So now what we need is for more people to keep using the libraries, use these resources, and right now we're celebrating because the branch remodels have been completed. So a decade ago, there was research. What does every area of the city need? What does that particular community most benefit from if we can put it into the library system? We are actually towards the end of that now. So I would say that was a successful project, successful planning. There was funding matched from the city that helped lay a foundation so that we could have a library system that is competent and capable. And then we partner with a few other organizations, including the Library Foundation, to then make it like all the bells and whistles. And I shouldn't say we have all the bells and whistles because that's not necessarily what you see when you walk into a library, but you saw there's a bunch of things that you can do. And that comes from partnerships and from other funders as well. So what we really want is for people to be using the library. What is the one librarian branch in this district? Walters. Where was it before? We didn't have one in District 3, right? It was at Linwood Park, which was just outside District 3 and had limited hours because it was hooked onto a community building. Well, now, because we have that rented space that hopefully you've all been to, they have a little bit more hours. Then city supported some staffing so that we could have another librarian in there, which drastically expanded, well, I should say one full-time librarian instead of somebody like a tech, okay? So now we can have more increased programming and quality of programming, more meeting space use, but there are only 2 branches in the city that are open 40 hours a week when the rest are open 60, and one of them is ours. So that's a personal goal I have as president of the board, is to help get all of the branches open in the same amount of time so that the building that's been invested in can actually be used by the city citizens that many hours. So what we're asking is for people to visit, participate, check out the programs. There's awesome stuff there that you can't believe is free. Tell people about it. Ask your friends and other family members, like, hey, when have you gone to the library? What did you do there? Then please make sure and tell Mike so that he can help the city council pass a budget that we're all really proud of. And thank you. But yeah, if you know somebody that's looking for a way to volunteer, there are opportunities at the library for people to connect and get some socializing and find the kind of thing that's right for somebody that wants to be social, or maybe somebody who doesn't want to be as social. You can donate your extra books to the Friends of the Library. That's downstairs downtown. And then also there's a giving campaign. And so if people are that you know would be interested in maybe giving in their will or something like that, that'd be great. So really what we're hoping for is just to hear how people are using it. So we are your 2 representatives for this area. So if you go to the library board page, you can email us and ask us your questions. Tell us how people are using it. Let us know what you wish there were more of. And please help me advocate for us to have increased funding for staffing. I think everybody's been doing what they can, but like our district should have the open hours that the other districts have, in my opinion. And I think that would really benefit our community and people that are going there to use Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. Walters is busting at the seams. People are using it so much. There are not enough hours or librarians to serve the people that are trying to come in those doors. That is an awesome problem to have. So yes, please just be aware, consider a sign. I've got one in my front yard. And yeah, thanks.
Any questions?
The library of things that's on here, are those things available at all branches?
Not at all the branches, no. So, if you go to the library's website and just click on Library of Things, it will tell you where each one of those things are available.
Any other
Quick
questions?
reminder, we don't do questions after the public agenda unless there's like a really
Oh,
important
okay,
comment,
I'm
so.
sorry.
Sorry, I can't answer any questions.
Are you a librarian? No.
No, I'm not.
But if you do have a question, go to the library. That's what I'm trying to train people. They have to connect with all kinds of things. Yeah.
Well, that's the report then. There's no questions allowed, so they're done.
You're done.
Number 5, do we have anybody for off? Sign up for off? Do we have anybody sign up for number 5?
No.
That was number 5. That was your scheduled items. You're on off agenda. Oh, sorry, yeah, off agenda. Mine has the update to the communications team.
On the new business?
Did you ask if anyone is here for off agenda? Is there anyone here for the public agenda? Off agenda item? No? Okay. Then now you can move on.
Number 6, new business. Anybody here from the department?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Christina Reed with planning staff. I do apologize for my late appearance. I did have something come up. I did have something come up. So I'm usually here at the beginning of things. So today I'm here to present Zone 2025-00025. That is the case number. So they are requesting a zone change on this property. It's currently zoned multifamily residential. They're looking to do limited commercial. It is 0.17 acres in size. It's on the east side of South Hillside Avenue, 700 feet north of Ross Parkway. The property is currently undeveloped, and the applicant is requesting that zone change in order to allow vehicle repair for it. So if we look at the map here, the parcel directly below that is zone limited commercial. It is owned by the applicant, and they are looking to do vehicle repair on that site. It is allowed by right on the limited commercial property just south of that, so they're looking to have both of their properties be a part of this. So there is a site plan that was provided, and I believe that is, oh, if I did not include that in the report, I do apologize. I must have left that out. Sorry about that. So MF 29 zoning, it allows for residential uses up to 29 dwelling units per acre. Limited commercial zoning, it allows for residential uses up to 75.1 dwelling units per acre, as well as a limited number of commercial uses. So I do have a table here just below this to give you an idea of what the development standards will look like. Compatibility height setback standards do not apply to the subject site because it's more than 50 feet from two-family residential zoning. However, they are still subject to compatibility noise standards. So no sound amplification system or projecting music, shall be permitted on any property zoned neighborhood office or more intensive. So this is more intensive than neighborhood office. So in terms of parking, vehicle repair limited requires 1 parking space per 333 square feet of office space plus 3 additional parking spaces. In the site plan, which again, I did not include in my report here, they didn't specify how big their office building was going to be, but they will be required to provide the appropriate amount of parking spaces. And then in terms of signage, usually in MF 29 zoning, which is what it's zoned now, they're allowed 1 ground or pole sign up to 48 square feet. And the signs cannot be more than 20 feet height. For the MF 29 zoning, they're allowed, or for the LC zoning, I'm sorry, they're allowed up to 400 square feet or 20% of the building's elevation. So the applicant shall be required to install 1 shade tree or 2 ornamental trees for every 500 square feet of required landscape street yard, in addition to parking lot screening. So we're anticipating less than 20 parking spaces for the site because it's so small. So we don't anticipate them having to plant some trees in their parking lot. So the character of the neighborhood is really what made us recommend denial for this application. It is mostly residential north of the Gypsum Creek and then commercial south of the creek. And this is currently open space. And then to the south and the west, it's not developed. It is zoned limited commercial. And then across the Hillside Avenue, it is zoned planned unit development, but it is also undeveloped. There are no zoning cases associated with this property. And the subject site has access to South Hillside Avenue, which is a 4-lane arterial street with sidewalks on each side. We believe that the requested zone change is not in conformance with the community investments plan. The future growth concept map, which is on page 7 of your staff report, it recommends the subject site is appropriate for parks and open space. So it does not align with the requested use of the account. And then, you know, the comprehensive plan has locational guidelines that provide a decision-making framework regarding land use changes. One of its land use compatibility guidelines aims to discourage development from occurring in aquifer recharge, flood-prone, high groundwater, wetland, and unsuitable soil areas. So because this is next to the Gypsum Creek, we are saying that it's not in conformance with the local. And then it's also not in conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. The plan, it outlines 6 strategies that help guide the community in their actions to create walkable places within Wichita. And so it's to, one of the strategies is to encourage infill and redevelopment that is contextual into the environment in which it is occurring. So north of Gypsum Creek, again, we have open space, and vehicle repair limited is not really contextual to that surrounding environment. So again, planning staff is recommending denial based on the golden rules, which are listed in your staff report. We did not receive any comments from the public. I think a big reason for that is because they are required to notify everyone within 200 feet of the subject property, and it's a very small property. There's a lot of open space and not many people will be notified about this. That is my assumption at least. But if you guys do decide to recommend approval tonight, it's recommended that you adopt alternative findings and then approve a zone change to limited commercial. So if you wouldn't mind going to the site photos here. So this is the open space that I was referring to. You can see some walking paths here and along here. A lot of open space, and then the bridge in the bottom right corner here, that is where the Gypsum Creek is. So, do you have a question, sir?
I have a question.
Yes.
To get this in perspective, across the street and how far down or up is the Lord's Diner?
It's this
I drive
building,
that street periodically.
it's the building right here.
Where's that? Okay, so I'm trying to get a, it's such a small piece of property. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly where it's at in pictures.
Right by that creek.
Okay, thank you. And they're recommending it be denied.
Correct, we are recommending denial. This was originally scheduled for the planning commission last week. However, they were unavailable to attend the meeting. And so they requested that it be deferred to the July 14th meeting, which is a week from Thursday.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're asking to get this approved, but they do have a current property.
Yes, so if we want to go to back up to the first page, there's two triangles here. So there's two triangles. So this property here is owned by the applicant. It's zoned limited commercial. And that allows vehicle repair limited by right. They are looking to expand their property into the adjacent parcel, which is zone MF29, to allow that to be vehicle repair limited as well. I'm not entirely sure if they are able to operate just on this property here that they already own, just because I haven't discussed that with them yet. So
Who owns this property then? It looks like, when you drive down there, it looks like all city property around nursing homes and
Yes.
North Bender. So who's selling the property to first?
So that was originally part of the subdivision plat. So in the case history, it was platted as part of the Plainview subdivision. And so these are just parcels that are part of the subdivision. So
Any other questions?
I'm looking at this and your denial is based on golden rules.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, Becca, because we went over golden rules at the training. I paid attention. But looking at this, it seems to me that what they want to do is just create one lot for one business.
Right.
And I don't know that it's necessarily in the best interest of the city to not support the idea of gaining more business, putting another business there. Well, creating a lot that is viable for a business. Because currently, as it is, it's not viable. So I think what they're trying to do is create a viable lot. And if they don't get that, it's just gonna sit there for years. I mean, ideally, what I would prefer to see is the city to buy those lots and turn them into open space. That would be conforming with the rest of that area. But I don't see that necessarily happening. So, and I think turning it into a viable business lot would make sense. My opinion.
Are you for or against it?
I'm for it.
See, I'm against it because I think it could become a sore spot in the middle of not a luxury, but
I'm gonna pause you for a second.
This is
Remember,
all
you're doing
outside.
questions, right? And then we're gonna turn it over to the public for their comment, and then you all can have your actual discussion before you vote.
Yeah, I don't see the applicants here in attendance today. So.
So-
They're definitely not in the room. I know everybody in
we're
here.
looking for public.
Yep, you're gonna turn it over. If there's no more questions from the dad, we'll turn it over to the public for comment.
Any questions from the public? It's back to us.
Is it just questions or comments?
Comments.
I think it'd be weird to have that kind of industry right next to the river.
I didn't hear.
I think that it's not super, from an environmental standpoint, having that kind of an industry right next to the river raises concern for me.
Any further discussion or questions?
What is the building to the south? Or I'm assuming, yeah, to the south. On the other side of the river. What industries or businesses?
It is an apartment building.
Well, that is apartments, okay.
Sorry,
This is-
I drive by this on my way to work every day. This is my
Yeah,
work
yeah,
neighborhood.
right down the street. This is currently zoned for multifamily, so if they were to sell both lots to someone else and that someone else wanted to build duplexes or an apartment building, it's awfully small space. And that's my other concern is this isn't a large enough space for an apartment building. Really. Even if you put both lots together. Ideally, it should be left as open space, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to the owner of the property.
My main concern is there's a lot of empty spaces around our district. to utilize. And I'm afraid we're gonna start seeing, if we let this develop and it doesn't work, it's gonna end up being another empty building sitting on Ontario Street. We were just, in the last few months, debated west or east Mount Vernon about the two garages across the street, so they're worried about the cars being repaired, being parked out here and there on the sidewalk. I'm not against business, but I just think it's the wrong area to develop. But that's just my opinion.
Fair, I can go along with that.
Anybody else got anything to say? Yes, sir.
Once again, I guess I missed this. How big is the current lot?
So the current lot is 0.17 acres. And the one just south of that is, looks to be about the same size, so you're looking at a little bit over a quarter acre.
So it's real small.
Yeah, you're probably looking at,
About the size of a household.
like my lot is 0.15 acres, and I have a corner lot, so.
Let me ask this question. Has anybody driven down that street going
Yes.
towards the first recently?
Yeah,
Okay, you and I?
I drove over there after I read the report.
I'm just wondering if we ought to take a month, everybody drive by and give a visual effect. If not,
As a reminder, we cannot change the timeline for an
Okay.
MAPC case. So
We
if you
can't
all
do-
are really undecided, you can make a recommendation to Mike that once it gets to council, it goes back to you. But you do have to make some kind of vote.
So we still need a motion here.
I'd make a motion that we deny based on the recommendations of the staff.
Second.
Everybody hear the motion, everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say at the same sign. Motion carried to deny.
Did anybody not vote?
Me, I'm undecided.
I didn't vote as well.
702 then. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7. You guys are up. You gentlemen.
It's a well-dressed gentleman.
Not an action item, right?
Nope, you just have feedback.
Okay, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Troy Anderson. I'm the Assistant City Manager for City of Wichita. We've been having these conversations for a couple of years now. In fact, I stood in front of City Council, almost 2 years ago, and talked about heading down this path. Got some really good feedback from City Council then. Started working with city staff to try to ascertain exactly what it was that we needed to do, right? But the context of the conversation is around property maintenance and the codes, and the ordinances, and the process by which we enforce property maintenance codes. Next slide. So I started the conversation 2 years ago, and I came back to City Council a couple weeks ago, and I want to set the stage here that we understand property owner rights. Right? I'm going to talk a little bit here about property owner rights and kind of the history around property owner rights. And we get property owner rights. I think what's missed oftentimes in conversations around property owners and property owner rights in urban areas, right, is property owners also have a responsibility. Okay, so they've got to find that balance between property owner rights and property owner responsibilities. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We then went and did a deep dive into the city's municipal code. What are all of those codes and ordinances that exist that are on the books today that relate to property maintenance? I'm gonna talk a little bit about the International Property Maintenance Code, and then some of the next steps that we're gonna look at over the next couple of weeks and months around policies and procedures and ultimate performance measures. These last three bullet points were really what came out of the workshop about 2 years ago, right? Where these are the three things that we really wanted to focus on is improving our property maintenance codes, leading into better policies and procedures, and then ultimately performance measures to try to improve properties that are not being well maintained. Next slide. Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about in property owner rights, right? That property owners can acquire, use, and dispose of property freely, so long as those actions do not violate the rights of others. There's the 5th and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, Kansas property and real estate laws. Next. Property owners are also legally obligated to provide reasonable care and maintenance of their property to ensure that it's safe from dangerous conditions. This is the other half of the equation, right? So it's not just property owner rights. Property owners also have a responsibility to their neighbors and to the community, the neighborhood, right? So this is applicable to commercial properties, not just residential. It's also applicable to housing authority, right? We're responsible to maintain our own properties. We're going to talk a little bit here in a little while about not only property owner responsibility, rights and responsibilities, but tenant rights and responsibilities. That includes operators, occupants, tenants, the whole laundry list. We'll kind of get into that here in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to read this, and really this comes right out of the International Property Maintenance Code, which we have not adopted yet. The reason why I want to read this is just to show that balance between not only rights but responsibility, as well as that everybody involved is responsible, right? So the owner of the premise shall maintain the structure and exterior property in compliance with the requirements except as otherwise provided in code. A person shall not occupy as owner occupant or permit another person to occupy a premise that are not sanitary and safe and that do not comply with the requirements of the chapter. Occupants of a dwelling unit, rooming unit, or housekeeping unit are also responsible for keeping in a clean, sanitary, and safe condition a part of the dwelling unit, housekeeping unit, or premise they occupy and control. This is not new language. We have a lot of that language already in our city codes and ordinances. It's just a little bit clunky. So, for example, in our Wichita Municipal Code, section 2004-030, there are minimum standards for basic equipment and facilities, minimum standards for light, ventilation, electricity, and heating, so on and so forth. But you'll see down at the bottom, no owner operator shall occupy as owner occupant any dwelling or dwelling for the purpose of living which does not comply with, and then there's a whole host of rules and regulations. So it's not new in context, but it is a little bit cleaner, and I'll get into kind of some of the arguments for why we're going to try to move and why we're recommending moving and migrating to the International Property Maintenance Code versus some of the existing codes and ordinances that we have on the books today. Responsibility as owners and occupants. I'm not going to read all of this. Again, kind of says a lot of the same things. Next slide. Okay, so one of the things that came out of the discussion, the workshop we had with City Council a couple of years ago, right, was an educational campaign. So we've developed a landlord-tenant handbook that lays out both rights and responsibilities for owners and for tenants, and that's been published and circulated. So it wasn't sort of just due diligence over the last 2 years. We have been trying to do some education around rights and responsibilities of both owners, operators, but also tenants. Next. So then we're going to get into a little bit of some of the really, really high level. So occupants and tenants, which is really some of the impetus for a lot of this, right? We deal with a lot of properties that property owners are not maintaining on behalf of their tenants, right? And so tenants have certain rights to habitable property. So occupants tenants have the right to live in a habitable rental property. General needs must be free of any health or safety threats, vermin infestation, functional employment, electricity. Next slide. So this is what we call across the spectrum, regardless of whether a community adopts property maintenance codes or not, right? There's a general rule in and around court systems, what they call a warranty of habitability, right? So most courts recognize an implied warranty of habitability, even if the rental agreement doesn't outline it. Some of these claims that a tenant has certain warranties of habitability have stood up in court. Next slide. Continues on, kind of some of the assurances. So then what we oftentimes hear, right, is a landlord that will say, well, yes, I have a responsibility to provide certain warranty and habitability to my tenants, but then my tenants also have a responsibility to maintain my property in good repair, right? So it goes both ways. So again, in the International Property Maintenance Code, it does talk about how occupants of a dwelling unit are responsible for keeping it in a clean, sanitary, and safe condition. Again, not new language. We have some of it reads a little bit similar. That appears in our Wichita Municipal Code, section 2004-070, and then otherwise abide by all of the terms and conditions of the lease. Again, over the last 2 years, in addition to the due diligence and what we've been doing to get to where we are today, we have also created, in cooperation with City Council, a retaliatory eviction ordinance. That was one of the things that came out of that workshop a couple of years ago. So that was one of the first things we tried to accomplish. It was adopted by City Council in January 2024. Okay, so that's just a really, really high level just to frame the conversation, right? So then a lot of the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years is we really wanted to dive into the city codes and ordinances and figure out what we have and what we don't have. So we did a deep dive into the city's municipal code. And what we found was that the code is duplicative across numerous titles, resulting in confusion, right? The property maintenance codes have been bifurcated into nuisance cases or housing cases, right? And in one title, it's handled one way, and perhaps in another title, it's handled a different way. And so one of the recommendations sort of all along has been to develop a consolidated property maintenance code. One easy to reference municipal code section that can be easily shared with property owners, landlords, occupants, tenants. So again, as you can see, we have sections across Title 7, 8, 18, 20. And then we also took a deep dive into the International Property Maintenance Code. And I'll get into that here in just a second. Okay, so the International Property Maintenance Code. The International Property Maintenance Code is a code series that is part of the International Code Council's documents, right? So International Code Council develops the International Building Code, International Residential Code, Mechanical Code, Plumbing Code, Energy Code. We have a number of other, but for all intents and purposes, cities across the nation, and City of Wichita in particular, right, has adopted these other code series, building code, residential code, so on and so forth, okay? This is a property maintenance code that complements all of that other code series, right? So you have, and we'll talk about it here in just a little bit, you have behind the International Property Maintenance Code, sort of tried and true property maintenance rules and regulations that are adopted by cities across the nation. Kind of a standard practice. It's sort of tried and true in the court system, has been upheld in courts across the nation, right? So it provides a really solid foundation by which we can approach how we are going to look at property maintenance and enforcement of property maintenance codes a little bit different in the future. So next. Again, the vetted, professionally developed body of work, part of the International Code Council Family of Codes. It's designed to actually work with the building, fire, plumbing, and mechanical, also the fire code. That was the other one I was thinking about. Excellent. Additionally, the International Code Council puts out a code series every 3 years. Right, so every couple of years, we reevaluate the building code. We reevaluate the residential code, the fire code, and it's an opportunity for the community to kind of revisit the code standards, the rules and regulations by which Metropolitan Area Building Construction Department and Neighborhood Inspections enforces codes and ordinances. Jurisdictions can adopt it in full, they can make local amendments, so it gives us a lot of flexibility. Next. Again, it's adopted by hundreds of jurisdictions across the nation. It's got a strong track record, legal credibility. In fact, there's a number of jurisdictions in Kansas alone that have already adopted the International Property Maintenance Code.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
It's called international, what we're talking about, is this worldwide?
It does have international application. There are some nations around the world that have embraced the International Code Council. And primarily, it's a US type of product, but there are some nations across the globe that have leaned in and adopted similar.
Thank you.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we came back and we're talking to city council. And so the next couple, we're gonna kind of make some recommendations on where we think this ought to go. Right, and so, and part of the conversation with city council, there's gonna be some, we've already gotten some feedback, but we also wanted to come out to the DABs. So I appreciate actually you interjecting into the conversation. This is intended to be sort of a give and take. This is not an action item in which you have at any point in time any comments, suggestions, questions. Please don't hesitate to chime in. We want to get your feedback a little bit too, maybe what you're seeing in the community, particularly in this district, to provide your district representative with some feedback, right? We've already got some initial feedback. I'll lean into some of that here in just a minute, but again, please don't hesitate to interject at any point in time and let me know if you have any thoughts or questions. So the recommendation that we're making right now is to repeal sections pertaining to property maintenance in Title 7, in Title 8, in Title 18, and in Title 20, and then replace primarily, there's still some section on Title 20 we're going to leave as well, but primarily Title 20 will become the consolidated International Property Maintenance Code adoption with local amendments. There's one easy to reference property. Next section. Okay, I'm going to run through this. I'm going to try to run through. Some of these are going to be more involved than others, so I appreciate your patience on this one. But really succinctly, this is how the International Property Maintenance Code is organized, right? So rather than sections that are dealing with nuisances or sections that are dealing with housing or sections that are in one title, the suggestion is that this is how the title should be organized, okay? So I'm gonna go through each one of these with some of the local amendments that we're gonna recommend, right? But very succinctly, there's a chapter 1 that deals with scope and administration of how we deal with property maintenance, property maintenance codes, some definitions, some general requirements. That's where we get into exterior properties, interior property. We're going to deal with some of the codes and ordinances related to light, ventilation, occupancy, plumbing, mechanical, fire, and then there's a host of reference standards at the end. But generally speaking, that's how the property maintenance code is organized. Okay, we'll go ahead and dive in. There's a couple of really overarching that I won't go through all of them, but there's some general amendments throughout. First and foremost, we want to make sure that any amendment that we make is consistent with state law. Right? We Our law department has been clear, and you'll see some of that throughout this. But we're not gonna make any amendments that aren't consistent with state law. Also, you heard me talk about how this is complementary to all of those other building codes, residential codes, fire codes, etc. All of those other documents, other than the fire code, but we won't get into that, have already been adopted and have been consolidated into the Wichita Sedgwick County Unified Building and Trade Code series, okay? So throughout this document, rather than referencing the individual, we're gonna reference throughout the document to the Unified Building and Trade Code. So just, you won't hear me talk about that probably too much from here on out, but just know that that's one consolidation of all those documents. And there will be references throughout local amendments to that Unified Building and Trade Code. Okay, so really, really high level, just for example, if you look at that International Property Maintenance Code, under section 101.1, it literally reads that the name of the jurisdiction shall be, and it says fill in the blank, right? So we've got to amend that section to read, the name of the jurisdiction shall read City of Wichita. The agency, name of the department, it says fill in the blank, it's gonna be Metropolitan Area Building Construction Department, and the official in charge is the code official. Duties and powers of the code official, no conflict with the Kansas Tort Claims Act. Again, that was one of those examples, making sure that the code official is not a violation, cannot be sued for, and the city cannot be sued under the state statute. Okay, means of appeal. Every code standard, building code, residential, they all have a section of the administrative code, chapter 1, that deals with the Board of Appeals, okay? So we already have a Board of Appeals, we don't need to create a new one, so we're simply amending that to say that the Board of Appeals shall be replaced with the Board of Code Standards and Appeals. That's what we've already called it, right? So we already have it, we just want to make sure that that's consistent across the board. Okay. Still in section chapter 1, right? Here was the first opportunity for you all and for city council to kind of weigh in on how we are going to prosecute violations, okay? I can tell you how we've been doing it, right? And there is some suggestion by some that, not that it's not working, but it's working as it was designed, right? And that is that the original intent was to continue to work with property owners, so much so that the violations never get abated, right? And so, next slide. When we start talking about how we're going to deal with prosecution of violations, right? Right now, MAPCD exhausts all compliance options before ever issuing what they call a UCC. Remind me again. Uniform Criminal Complaint. Uniform Criminal Complaint. I always forget what that stands for. But that's basically a notice of violation that says, hey, you're in violation of the city codes and ordinances. You need to go appear in court, sort of go tell it to the judge, right? But our e-court, I'll get to that here in just a little bit, isn't quite structured the way we might want it structured, right? And so even e-court continues to give property owners an opportunity to abate a violation, and for all intents and purposes, we never get the violation abated, right? Okay. Extensions are granted when the homeowners work with the liaison, the full permit, the demonstrated all some pretty kind of vague generalized stuff. Again, environmental court follows a similar compliance driven model that's actually codified. And so it makes it really difficult when dealing with a property owner that doesn't want to cooperate, right? To obtain the compliance that a neighbor, a neighborhood, a community, a city is wanting out of a property. Next slide. So what we presented to city council were 3 options, okay? The first option is to replace environmental court with an administrative hearing process, okay? This is actually less assertive than what we have on the books right now, but it was an option that was presented to city council, right? And really, this is that temperature of how do we want to approach enforcement of property maintenance violations? Oh, gosh. Option 2 was to modify environmental court to be more assertive, right? And really, this is kind of the other end of the spectrum. So rather than sort of the option 1 sort of laissez-faire, this is the sort of most assertive approach where there is no more court. We're repealing the court's compliance goal as codified by federal ordinance, and we're going directly to sort of criminal court, right? The violation could result in immediate criminal court notification. So those are kind of the bookends of the two options. Option 3 hybrid model is where once a UCC is issued, right, that the prosecutor can then decide, depending on whether it's a first-time offender or a repeat offender, right, whether or not that goes to more of an administrative hearing, if it's a first-time offender possibly, or in the case of a repeat offender, that can go straight to that criminal court. Some of the original feedback that we got from city council just a couple weeks ago is they were leaning towards maybe this option 3 hybrid model. Seems pretty consistent. I see some heads nodding. Seems kind of the direction that
Feedback, people.
I'm trying to restrain our neighborhood in trouble, and
Okay.
I don't know how to address it without really causing more conflict in my own little world. We have trees, we have buildings, we have yards not being taken care of. Our corporation's not doing it, and I don't want to sound so negative, so I'm trying to really hold back.
Right, and can you talk about the process before it gets to environmental court as well?
Yep, I'm gonna hit on that. I think we got some pretty good guidance on the hybrid model, but let me show you why maybe this system is, I hate to say broken, because that's just kind of how it was originally. Years ago, the feedback that the governing body gave city staff was that this is how we want it to work, right? And so we've been, but next slide. So let me try to fast forward a little bit. I'm looking for, there's a slide that shows the process, and then we'll come back to demolition. Did she take it out?
On the process, how is it directed
She
to the
must have
neighborhood?
taken out those slides. That's okay. So to the process. Let me speak to the process, right? If you look at, we have a diagram that kind of show a flow chart diagram that shows the process, right? I alluded to a little bit, right? But the direction that previous governing body provided to staff was work with property owner, work with property owner, work with property owner, to the point where, again, we kind of never really get online. E-court was also somewhat set up the same way, right? I'm not suggesting that we're gonna go from one extreme to the other, right? This is still gonna be an entirely complaint-based model, in that if the city receives a complaint that a property is not being maintained, then we're gonna try and streamline the process through policies and procedures. Imagine, if you will, this is kind of the analogy I've been using with people, right? It's the 3 strikes rule. So we get a complaint, hey, the neighbors, I'm just gonna use high weeds and grass. That's probably the most famous one, right? That people can relate to.
Dead trees.
Dead trees, trash, debris, inoperable vehicles, the longer this goes on, right? So we get a complaint, and
Sorry, I'm trying to find your name. It's in one of these docs.
that's okay, she's gonna keep doing that, I'll keep talking. So strike 1 is the inspector comes out and says, yep, that's in violation of city codes and ordinances, that's in violation of property maintenance code. You have X number of days to abate the violation, right? So I'm gonna come back in X number of days and do a follow-up inspection to see whether or not you abated the violation. If I return, let's say 30 days. 30 days later, I come back and you still haven't abated the violation. Strike two, I'm gonna give you one more chance to abate that violation, right? Except it's gonna probably be a reduced time frame. Call it 15 days. I'll come back in 15 days if you haven't abated the violation. Strike three, rather than continuing to try to give that property owner opportunity, we're gonna say, here's your UCC notice violation, and go tell it to the judge, right? We need to become more efficient and more effective in enforcement of these property maintenance codes. And then once we can turn that over to the prosecutor's office, then they can make those determinations, like I said, with that hybrid model of, okay, maybe you're a first-time offender, maybe you didn't know and understand, maybe here, let me connect you with some resources, and the prosecutor's office can handle that, right? Or, and I'm hesitant to even say the word, right, but hey, you're a slumlord, right? You're a repeat offender. I've seen that time and time and time again. We're not gonna send you to the administrative hearing. You're gonna have to tell it to the judge, right? And now there becomes a criminal sort of component. Hey, you might be subject to a misdemeanor and perhaps jail time, right? Like criminal court type of law. So
I'm caught in a different entity. We're shared ownership.
yeah,
And the retaliatory thing here, if you complain to the office or whatever, that could be devastating to the member. And I'm personally experiencing that. So just a lot of little stuff going on there, but they need to be woke up, and I'm not the one to do it because it's coming the wrong way.
sure.
But people have been complaining, I know with the MABC thing now, right now, they've been swamped.
Yeah.
I know we have lots of problems like Platt Park, and they're not coming out and talking to nobody. It's not going to our office, and if it hits our office, I'm not sure our board's even hearing about it. So, and it's just numerous things.
And that's
Code
why,
enforcement would have a heyday.
well, and that's why we're trying to, because enforcement gets bogged down with going back to the property, not just the 3 strikes, but the 5th time, and the 6th time, and the 7th time, and the 12th
They've been
time.
there 80 years.
Right, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to, and that's not a code requirement, right? But that's where the International Property Maintenance Code and Chapter 1 in particular lends itself to, here's the process, right? Here's kind of the process that all other cities across the nation who adopt the International Property Maintenance Code sort of, here's how they handle these types of violations, right? And so what we're trying to do is empower those inspectors to be able to do their job, inspect, either gain compliance or not gain compliance, and then hand that over to the court system. Now, you're right. Inspectors are being overwhelmed with violations, which is why what we've been doing isn't working. We've got to try to do something different. We're gonna try to approach it from kind of this angle and this approach.
And if I can add in real quick as well, we have positions within the city that takes a look at special cases. So we're not trying to crack down on the 84-year-old widow who's having trouble. Suzanne Bose is with the department. If you guys know that SB mowing, that's one that we reach out to if we do have cases like that to go through and help. So the intent of this is not to, again, crack down on people who are struggling, because we do try and work with people within that time. It's the repeat offenders, it's this, I don't have any problem saying it, it's the slum boards. A number of those issues that we really need to have a little more action. Or unleash MABCD's hands to address them, I think.
Yeah, on your 3 strikes, from what you're saying, it's okay, you know, you've got the trash complaint, you have 60 days to abate. 60 days comes, they still haven't done it, 15 more days, then another 10 days after that.
Yep.
What if in the first 60 days they clean it up?
Then the case is closed.
And then 30 days later, we're back to square one. Because that's what's happening, at least in my neck. Is, you know, you've got the people who say they've got 5 non-functional cars in their driveway, all sitting on flat tires, leaking oil that's running down into the gutter. And expired license plates, well, they fill up the tires, they pay for the license plates, and then it goes away, and 3 weeks later, we're back to square one.
Yeah.
Is there a way to put a limit on how many times the property could be complained against?
So
Just overall.
unfortunately, no, right? In the context of the inspectors, we're trying to keep the inspectors focused on moving violations through this to gain the compliance necessary, right? So if a complaint is lodged, a violation is identified, a period of compliance is established, and they abate that violation, then they just close the case, right?
But if the violation is repeated over and over and over again, it seems like it would make more sense to say, hey, you've had this same violation X number of times in X number of months.
Yeah.
There needs to be a limit there.
We have people that only
I don't
know their
know how we
yard,
do
we're
that.
told to mow their yard.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's difficult, unfortunately, there's gonna be abusers of the system. It's
They all live in
difficult,
District 3.
it's difficult because an inspector, right? Doesn't have, the idea is that the inspector doesn't have the time to kind of go do that due diligence and go, okay, hey, maybe because you're gonna repeat offender. Now, if I can get to that UCC, right, then now that's the prosecutor's job, but our inspectors are not sort of judge, jury, so they just have to unfortunately just deal with the violation. If the violation gets abated, okay, you abated the violation, I now have to just wait for that next
Do
complaint.
they log it that's reoccurring though?
Oh, yeah, well, every single case. The other thing that we're gonna kind of create a little bit too is the difference between sort of what we call just the complaint system. We're gonna try to establish two systems, the complaint system and the actual violation.
Actual violation.
Right? So we'll know, hey, a complaint came in, was there an actual violation, yes or no? That way we can kind of daylight, we get a lot of neighbor feuds, right? Hey, and we go out there and there's actually not a violation, right? So we can better manage those and the performance measures around the complaints and the complaint system. And then on the actual, okay, now we have a violation history, we'll be able to know John Doe at 123 Sesame Street has had X number of violation cases that have been opened up. And that all becomes really good case history around that property for the prosecutor if a UCC is ever issued. So we can start beginning to develop backlog of all of the incidences that may have. So it might get to a prosecutor and it might be their first sort of UCC violation, but in working with the inspectors, if we have that entire back history of they're a known violator, right? Even though they've maybe abated now, they're actually kind of becoming delinquent in abating a violation. Now that can become kind of case history around maybe why the prosecutor would send them to court rather than to the administrative hearing process. Just helps provide a little bit of data and data-driven and informed decisions. But primarily, the inspector is going to focus on just trying to get the violation abated, and then if not, handing it over to the prosecutor.
So I kind of had a weird situation
Yeah.
personally, actually. I had one of your inspectors that literally was harassing me. I'd catch him on my cameras
Yeah.
for ridiculous things. He was trolling the neighborhood every month. And I had like 3 different violations that were ridiculous. Like, I have a very well maintained property. And so when I would call and ask these questions, it was very rude. And I went through the neighborhood and he was doing this to other people. He lived not far from here, so then he took it upon himself to troll our neighborhood on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know me, I'm very much, okay, well, talk to me. So I pulled up next to him one day and asked him, where is your area you're supposed to be patrolling or going to? Because there's a lot of violations way worse than any of this, like, I was remodeling my house, so I had material in my garage, so I had an inoperable vehicle on the side of my house for 3 days. And I got a violation. I'm like, it's been 3 days. It's literally going back in the garage, like next few days. And it just little things like this constantly, to the fact, to the point where some of us made signs that said, his name is Ray. It's like, roll on, Ray, like, go find somewhere else. So, I mean, there's gotta be a balance here.
Yeah.
Especially, like my neighborhood's very well maintained. There isn't any properties that are really bad.
White stickers been sitting on cars for so long that faded out.
Yeah.
Those responses don't happen without a complaint. And we
Yes.
document that in the system. So while I'm sorry, and I know it feels that way to you all, but that's some of what Troy's addressing when you talk about, neighbor feuds and the way neighbors handle things, and we try to
Yeah.
break that out because that.
Yeah, it started with
Spot,
somebody
you get it
complaining
twice.
about a neighbor down the street. And then
Yeah,
this
security is
person
fine.
took it upon himself to patrol our neighborhood and like basically write violations out to a lot of people, just nitpicking tiny little things. And it was like, I don't understand what's going
Well,
on.
I'm sorry you had to experience that.
It was
right?
awful.
That, I don't want that to be representative of the experience that you have with our property maintenance inspector, right? So if that kind of stuff ever happens in the future, escalate that to the city manager's office, right? And let us take a look at that. Or to the director will absolutely, so either the director or myself, please don't hesitate to send that up the chain, right? And let us, but to the point of, the inspector should not be inspecting a property without a complaint. And that's where we're gonna try and do a better job. This gives us the foundation in which we operate. And then we're gonna develop policies and procedures that become more efficient, more effective. And part of that is just kind of how we conduct day-to-day business. But they should not be inspecting a property without a valid complaint. Now, I wanna tamper expectations. It could be an anonymous complaint, right? There may be people who are fearful of lodging a complaint, right? So there's information that our inspectors can collect to assure that this is sort of a valid complaint, but the complainant could remain anonymous to a degree, right? There's information we need to collect to validate that. But that's the kind of history that we're trying to develop in the CRM model around the complaint so that we can kind of have a better idea whether or not there's something going on in a particular neighborhood. But I'm sorry you had that experience. That's not the experience that
It
you
was
should have.
terrible.
You should have, unfortunately, hopefully good experiences that by having active property maintenance inspectors in and around our neighborhoods, right, that we're cleaning up our neighborhood, we're getting improved cleanliness and maintenance in our neighborhood. So, but don't ever hesitate if something like that, or don't escalate it to the director or the city manager's office, all that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
If they see an issue though, and they are on call, and there's another issue here, another issue here, do they report those as well? They blow those off just for the one they've been called on?
We have been trying really, really hard to keep it directly to complaint driven process. Right now, there is some
3 yards, I would spot one, and that person,
We
look
do
at
look at
that
the
yard,
adjacent.
be distracted.
you do.
Yes, we do look at the adjacent.
We talked about that a couple of years
So
ago.
not saying it. But we try not to expand it.
Yeah.
To,
So
too
some
far.
communities, and this is where maybe it hasn't been either practiced or. So 2 years ago, you might recall the slide deck we had with city council. There are some communities that implement what they call a 360-degree process, right? So if I get called out to a violation, let's say the address is 123 Sesame Street, right, for high weeds and grass, and I come out and they've got high weeds and grass. My next step is to kind of go, okay, is this the only property with high weeds and grass, right? Or do I kind of put a blind eye, put blinders on? Okay, I do 360, oh, nope, there's high weeds and grass, nope, there's high weeds and grass, and nope, there's high weeds and grass. And then I go and I not voluntarily, right, but I've identified within sort of a 360-degree view that there's, and then I'll go address those as well. we've never really sort of codified that. I don't know if that's necessarily in any sort of policies. We talked about it, right? But it hasn't been really, so maybe there's been some inconsistencies in that in the past. Adopting the code series is just the first step in trying to get us to these other steps, which is a robust policy and procedure manual by which every inspector is supposed to be responsible for. This is how I'm gonna deal with high weeds and grass. This is gonna have how I deal with inoperable vehicles. This is how I'm gonna deal with whatever that is. We gotta adopt the code series for the first, build the policies and procedures, and then use those performance measures to make sure that we're doing what we say we're gonna do.
Just so we don't get too bogged down. We've seen that Topeka, other cities are using this now. Haven't we talked to them about how that's worked for them? And also, is there any discussion with the county also adopting this so that we're uniform across a lot of areas?
So the city is focused on the city, right? It is a joint department. It is a joint city-county department. Primarily, and I don't want to speak on behalf of county supervisors or county residents, right? Generally speaking, folks out in the county have a different level of property maintenance standard, right? So not, right, we'll leave it at that. And so right now, the city is just focused on the city. So this is just for the city of Wichita city proper. That if other Mays or Andover or Goddard or they want to adopt them, that's fine. This is primarily just focused on city of Wichita. To the point of having conversations with other communities, I can tell you, I have been involved in communities across the nation who have adopted, and they find success, some better than others, right? The way we kind of focus on the property maintenance and the code is the code's the code, right? It's all about your policies and procedures and your enforcement. I could have the best laid code, and if I'm not enforcing it, then I'm not gonna have success.
I just wanted to make sure we were doing something. That's
Yes, absolutely. And that's what you're,
That's
this
the problem
is,
in my neighborhood, we have the rules and everything already established, but we don't enforce them all, and they've just been ran over.
and this is where we're gonna recognize that what we've been doing is doing exactly what was intended, right? But I don't think it has the outcomes and desires that perhaps this governing body and this community today perhaps want and desire. So that's why we're coming back to what is industry standard best practice? Tell us, this is what industry standard best practice is. Yes.
So we've had actually good experiences with MABCD in my area, and our inspector's fantastic. The problem we have is with the process, the time, 6 months to have something baited or longer, or longer, or MABCD runs out of funds at the end of the year and then they can't do anything till the end of the year. Is this going to change that and allow the process to be consistent and streamlined so that we're not looking at 6 to 8 months?
That's the intention. So once the code, once we have clarity on where the code is going over the next 6 months, our goal, and you'll see that here in just a little bit, our goal is that this is ready to go live sort of January 1, 2026, right? So we've got a lot of work to do in 6 months, but over the course of the next 6 months, we have a pretty good idea. We probably have about 90% based on DAD. This is our first DAD. So based on DAD feedback and ultimately what city council adopts in an ordinance, we're already starting to think about what do those policies and procedures look, how do we shorten that time period in such a way where we're being accommodating, right? We want to find that balance between property owner rights and property owner responsibilities, but how do we abbreviate and reduce that time to give folks ample time to make and abate the repair or the violation, but then at the same time, we're also being respectful to the neighbors and the neighborhood that if the violations aren't abated, there's an opportunity to implore other incentives to encourage that the violation gets. Here's the best way I could. Carrot and stick, right? We've had a lot of carrots, and for all intents and purposes, that's really all we've had. The stick has been somewhat non-existent, right? This is kind of where we're bringing in to try to find that balance between carrots. Okay. So I think we have pretty good feedback on the hybrid model. The next one was demolition. We can actually get to a point where don't want to spend a whole lot of time because I think we got some pretty good feedback from city council on the demolition process as well. But just to differentiate, under the International Property Maintenance Code, sort of industry standard best practice tells us that the code official can what they call placard an unsafe structure, right? And demand abatement of that unsafe structure, i.e. demolition, right? It's kind of one end of the spectrum. International Property Maintenance Code says code official has that authority as an industry expert, right? In Wichita, every sort of demolition has to go before city council, right? That adds time, and that's okay, right? That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So the next question was, current city code mandates that city council approves all demolitions. IPMC model authorizes the code official. So city council, what do you want to do? Do you want to maintain that all demolitions go to city council? Or do you want to be more assertive and turn that power over to the code official to, and so the initial feedback we got was that we should continue to send demolitions to city council for approval. We're okay with that. We just wanted to make sure that we got that feedback from city council so that we know how to amend the International Property Maintenance Code. That's what this slide and the next slide is all about. We talked about some appeals going to the Board of Appeals, but I think the response from council was that that needs to go to city council. Okay. I'm going to try to breeze through the rest of this really, really fast because now we're on chapter 2. Definitions. We're going to adopt the definitions in the International Property Maintenance Code as well as bring over some existing definitions. But for all intents and purposes, we want to try to use the definitions that are in the internet. That's the industry standard. That's the best practice. But we are going to bring over some just from what we've seen in some case law stuff. Chapter 3. Okay, so general, this is where it gets into things like swimming pools. We wanted to comply with other code sections we have around swimming pools. There was a little bit of a nuance around premises identification. So the International Property Maintenance Code says that the numbers on the building have to be at least 4 inches in height, right? We amended, we have local codes and ordinances that say that those numbers only have to be 3 inches. And so we want to be consistent and not have to make everybody go change the numbers on their house. So we're going to make a local amendment basically that maintains that 3-inch property identification. Yes.
I would think international code on swimming pools, a fence around swimming pool areas. Would older houses that don't have that be grandfathered in or?
So. That requirement is on the books
Is
today.
actually already that there's a fence around.
There's a requirement that's already on the books today. It requires that now. I don't know if there are any pools that don't have it. That's been in the books. That's been on the books.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a yard fence or if it's fenced area around the patio of the pool.
The
Colorado code was, it had to be, even if you had an exterior yard fence, you still had to have a smaller fence around the pool area that would keep a 3 to 5 year.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the
Colorado
law
codes.
is all of that, but John, I'll pull it up for you later and send it to you in an email.
Yeah, but it's been on the books for decades. They've had pool regular. It changes eventually, but generally speaking, as the property maintenance code looks at it, as long as the pool, whether it's an interior or an exterior, as long as the pool has a barrier that meets the height can't be climbed, has to have a self-latching gate, all of those kind of things, as long as that you. Now, if you don't have those things in place, depending on when the pool was installed, you might have what they call, it's a grandfather clause, but there's a better term for it, it's
We're simple.
yeah,
Grandfather.
but it is sort of a grandfather. Yes, that doesn't, just because we adopt this doesn't necessarily change. Okay. We're gonna amend the instruct screening requirement section, handrails and guardrails are gonna comply with some of our local, so we're not having to create more, non-conforming issues, so, okay, next chapter. We have on the books right now that in lieu of a window in bathrooms and water closets, an openable skylight approved by the code official may be added, so we just want to make sure the property code is consistent with the residential code. Next. Grease interceptors, complying with other Wichita Municipal Code sections, storm drainage, consistent with other Wichita Municipal Code sections, with some minor. Chapter 6, heating facilities. In the property maintenance code, again, it comes this, you gotta fill in the blank type amendments. And so these are those fill in the blank type moments, right, where you gotta have heating facilities, deleting the exception in areas where the average monthly temperature is above 30 degrees and the temperature of 65. We're gonna delete that exception. And then just maintaining heating facilities are required. Gotta have a heat supply, gotta have occupiable workspaces. Next section. And then I may have you go back. Okay, can you go back one? So there was a conversation at City Council. I want to go down this rabbit hole for 2 seconds. And that is just making sure there's no misunderstanding. There's nothing in the property maintenance code about a property having to have cooling requirements. Okay. So you have to have heat, but you don't have to have cool. So kind of let me explain. This really goes back to a lot of even older properties, right? I might have an old property that is heated by a wood burning stove, right? Or some other heating mechanism. Especially in cold weather environments, right? There's a requirement that a residence or building has to provide heat. But in older buildings, there used to not be any before conventional HVAC equipment. There was never any cooling equipment, right? And so historically, they haven't added cooling requirements. Now, if a building has heating and cooling equipment, that equipment must be maintained in good operating and in good repair, right? So I don't want to confuse that just because there's not a cooling provision in that you don't have to provide cooling mechanism. If a building has cooling equipment, if that HVAC goes out in the summertime, a landlord, a homeowner is responsible to maintain that in good repair, right? But there was some question of suggestion about, can we require that you have cooling? You could, but now you're gonna have older properties that may not necessarily have that technology. Whereas heating is a requirement.
In our neighborhood, they tell you that you're responsible for the cooling. If you have the air conditioning combination unit, they will not repair that. That will be on the shared ownership. That would be your responsibility to do it. They would maintain the heat. When I first bought my unit, they had rigged the air conditioner, took it off, and I had to replace all that. But they won't do that. They'll say that's your responsibility. We won't repair this part. We'll only do half of it. We'll replace the heat, not the air conditioner, even though it was part of the central air unit. We install furnaces, but we will not add an air conditioner to a new furnace without the responsibility to do so. We have furnaces go out, continue, they're 80 years old all winter long. We'll have 8 or 10 go out this next winter. It's just a gift. Yeah. So
the furnaces,
they won't pay for it.
Right, the furnaces are a requirement of the mechanical code, right? Are a requirement of the property maintenance code. Now, and this is where, again, it will be, if the building were issued a certificate of occupancy And that certificate of occupancy, in essence, included a system that you can't just remove it. That's not consistent with how the building was issued, the certificate of occupancy, or in the case of residential, right? That's not how that was closed out. Just because you don't have to have a claim doesn't mean you can't just unplug it, right? You have to, the equipment as it was installed and inspected and passed certification has to be maintained and good operating.
Gary, you're also gonna be in a weird position because it's a co-op. So you
Yeah,
all are.
it's a shared ownership.
owners,
It's
right?
really confusing. That's why I'm having so many problems with so much stuff here.
So your,
just-
your tenants are also owners, which is why they
Right.
get told outright that it's their problem to deal with it.
Pretty much, yeah. And then also in our rules, though, it says anything added to the building becomes property of Hilltop Manor, and they're supposed to maintain it. But they're not willing to do that. They're gonna put it back on you, because we don't have the funds to do that without raising association fees. That's gonna cost several White Albert houses.
Right.
So it's a complete mess.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's a little bit out of where Troy is trying to go right now with us
Yeah.
talking about art.
That's why I'm trying to restrain the questions I have. I have so many.
It's dwelling rights.
Yeah, that's all we have. It's just perpetual use of the building. So, and we have to buy into that, and now we're getting stuck to it.
That'd be an interesting case for trying to,
Yeah.
but, okay.
I'd like you guys to come knock on the door and talk to them.
Would love that.
Because if it comes out of me, they're already mad. So,
Duly noted. I just wanted to daylight, because some of that question has come up around cooling, requiring cooling. The property maintenance code doesn't address it, it doesn't require it, but it keeps supplies. Okay, next slide. Chapter 7, fire safety requirements. We've been over this with the fire marshal. There're just gonna be some general amendments like we talked about a little while ago about referring to the fire code, but nothing really out of the fire safety requirement. All consistent with the fire code. And then chapter 8 was those reference standards. That's all consistent with what we already have. Okay, next step, real fast. So originally we were gonna do DABS June to July. Had to slide that out a little bit. So we're gonna do DABS in July, August, might even just because of scheduling with multiple DABS on Monday nights, may spill over into September. But we're gonna continue to work through policies and procedures based on feedback that we've received during this process, and return to city council most likely in September with a recommendation for ordinance amendments. I know it says July, August, but most likely it's probably gonna be September at this point. With the intent of hopefully going live January 1, 2026. And so we've got a lot of work to do over the next 6 months, but this is the direction that we're. All that, yep. Last, we talked about performance measures, right? That once we get the code and the policies and procedures and we start documenting or developing good data, we're going to really kind of try to silo the complaints. What are those performance measures around the complaints? What are those performance measures around cases? And then we're also going to monitor the courts, right? Making sure that if the code inspectors are sort of doing their job and all of a sudden courts are just dismissing cases and dismissing cases, we'll be able to see that in the performance measures. So we're going to be really in sort of siloing those performance measures to make sure that all of those are leading to good outcomes. Okay. This is kind of the laundry list that we shared with City Council. It's not all inclusive, right? But it's things that have come up in conversations over the last couple of years that probably warrant their own discussion, but are not property maintenance code specific, right? So those might include things like income discrimination. Well, the property maintenance code doesn't deal with income discrimination, right? But that might warrant a conversation in and of itself, and it'll follow its own course. Same with rental registry, rental licensing, perhaps landlord watch lists, perhaps certified and preferred on the other end of the spectrum, perhaps certified or preferred landlord list. Requirements for perhaps a local property manager or extra penalties for repeat offenders, right? Some of those kind of things. Again, they're not property maintenance code related. They're sort of periphery type of conversations. And we've had conversations with City Council. We hear you. But right now, we're just focused on the property maintenance code. So I think that's the last. Any other questions? Comments, feedback? Yeah.
I guess in my opinion, I would think that as you're looking at enforcement abatement time frames, there's some things that can be fixed quicker than others.
Yes.
Obviously, so as long as those things are looked at within the statutes, if it's a all weeds and grass.
Yeah.
You know, a week is
Yeah.
enough, but if it's a structural issue, that might need a little bit more time because there's obviously more that goes into it. So I think as long as there's some of those things, that obviously helps on a complainant side of saying, you know, it shouldn't drag out to 6 months with somebody that has tall grass, because by the end of 6 months, it's cold and grass will die. Now we don't have to look at it again till next
And
year.
when we develop that policy and procedure, there will be a policy and procedure for every possible violation, so that any inspector, every inspector should be able to go to, okay, what is that section of my policy and procedure manual dealing with high weeds and grass? What is it? Oh, okay, first strike, you have 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay, second strike, you have 24 hours.
Just like what
Whatever
the
that
police
looks
department,
like.
yeah, just like what the police department has in their municipal, in their laws.
Correct.
They have that kind of across the board. I think that's super useful. How does this fall in with unoccupied structures when there's nobody living there? And now we're dealing with, okay, well, where is this person?
Yep. So, great question. Again.
That might be the local property management on here too, if it's some buildings anyway.
One of our biggest challenges is vacant, out of town property owners. That's a reality, right? And that's where the property maintenance code is silent on that stuff. The property maintenance code says you can't have high weeds and grass, and if you do, this is what you need to do about it. You need to abate the violation, right? It's those policies and procedures and how we respond to those violations. Whether it's a commercial property, which we haven't really focused on a lot historically, right? We primarily focused on residential properties, but you'll notice in the property maintenance code, it didn't exclude commercial properties. Commercial properties are the same, treated the same way, right? Property maintenance violation is a property maintenance violation is a property maintenance violation. So in that context, right? Again, we're gonna try to give the inspectors the tools and resources they need to be as diligent as possible to try to achieve the desired outcomes. But we're gonna try to focus on the fact that a violation is a violation, whether it's occupied or not. There's a property owner of record.
Oh, yeah.
Right? County tax collector gets theirs, right? There's a property owner of record. We have somewhere to start.
On the other policy considerations, you're talking local property manager. My question is you've got 10 violations in the neighborhood, there are 8 owners, but they're 1 property manager. Are you gonna keep track of that and make the property manager responsible as well as, because those property managers, we have issues with them where I live. It's not necessarily the owners. The property managers are just taking the checks from the owners, taking the checks from the tenants, and then they're doing 0 in the middle.
Right.
Until the property owner gets a letter and says, hey, and then they do one thing, and then they let it slide again.
And that's where some of that gets really sticky, really, really fast. That's why it was on that sort of alternative list of things that the city may or may not want to explore. The property maintenance code is silent on that, right? That a violation goes against the property owner, a violation goes against the property owner. And you might have those 8 different, and those might be 8 different violations in 8 different cases. But the way the property maintenance code looks at it is, I'm working with you, the property owner. If you have a property management group, great, it might streamline communication, but at the end of the day, property maintenance code and as well as state statute doesn't afford me an opportunity at this point to go after the property management group. I can only deal with the property owner.
I can see that.
Tenants in some cases, but I don't want to confuse the issue.
I can see that becoming a bigger issue in another 10, 15 years as all these duplexes that are being sold or bought or built are going through the process, and eventually they end up getting sold off to property management companies.
Yeah, and that's.
There's hundreds of those things.
And one of the things we're seeing is, especially after 2008, with more and more properties getting sold as rentals. A lot of big businesses and corporations and realty companies from the coast have actually been buying they've ran out of things to buy out east and out west, so they've been buying from here in middle America. And that's just, Chris will tell you, just it's so difficult to get a hold of these property owners sometimes. And I keep talking about Emery Gardens. I think we went through 7 different states trying to track down that owner before we finally were able to get a hold of them, and a couple of LLCs, and it's just so convoluted. We do run up against the interstate commerce clause. That makes it really tough to actually, constitutionally, we can't ban them. But I think there are some things about requiring a local property manager, maybe certifying them, those are other things. This list right here, that's something I've been chirping about for a while now. So it's a lot of this stuff. There's also state restrictions as well that really limit our abilities. We can't go into a unit and inspect it unless we are invited in by the tenant or the property owner. So, again.
Unless we obtain an administrative search, which we're gonna get more diligent about as well, because.
So it's like, the Emery Gardens, we can know that unit has black mold because the ones surrounding it do as well. But we can't get in there and inspect that. So, there's a lot of restrictions that we're trying to work through on the state level as well. We are very much a property rights first state. And I can respect that, but at the same time, those of us on the local level and those of us in the neighborhoods, we see how that can damage us because it does not give us the tools to adequately deal with the number of these violations. Especially, again, I'll go back to it, slumlords.
I know this was a lot of information for a Wednesday evening. Thank you so much for being patient. And really, it was engaging. So thank you for engaging and providing us some feedback and some of your thoughts and feelings, some of the challenges.
Or my entity is different than most of them. It is an issue. And Mike just talks about black mold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keegan, send them in.
Okay, I got a question. I've been issuing complaints in my area and I've written up to 9 complaints, 11 complaints, and I have addressed them even twice. And every time I go back to the website to see whether or not they've been handled, they have been shown to be unfounded.
Is that the portal?
They just get higher and higher in my neighborhood.
Is it about the trees, David?
No, it's about the weeds and the grass that nobody's cutting.
And that's where I hear you and I want to acknowledge, you're right, we need to do a better job. And that's where.
This is this high and it comes back that it's unfounded.
Yeah.
How is that possible when it's that tall?
That's where we're working on sort of internal operational policies and procedures. Knowing that we've been working towards this first and foremost to lay a foundation of how we're going to approach kind of that next iteration of property management in Wichita. Code and then building policies and procedures based on and trying to be more consistent, more data driven, more transparent, all of those things. Acknowledge, you're right, we need to do a better job. And we're working hard to do that. I apologize if that's the experience.
And they cut the grass today, the sidewalk disappeared. It was completely covered. It was just this deep, just dead grass on the sidewalk.
I'm surrounded by people that's got grass like this. They don't care.
And I'm certainly, you got a director sitting right behind you and Chris Labrum.
If you give me those addresses, sir, I'll check them out.
We'll follow up with them.
You have one in mind that's my next door neighbor.
Yep.
And I'm happy to look at it if so, and this is one thing that we need to fix in our system, the programming to do it was like way expensive, so we're trying to do it in our new system. If we get a duplicate complaint, our only option to clear the duplicate out is to mark it as unfounded, which we hate, because then you get that message.
Well, I waited on the first one to be shown unfounded, then I thought, another month has went by, resubmitted.
First one did.
And still again unfounded, a day after.
We're gonna
I'll
work
get that
that
address from you and check it out. Yeah, I can see what we can figure out.
We have a
Oh, I got
second.
more than one.
I am here all,
Yeah,
I'm
all
here
done.
until you don't want me to be here.
So a question with reworking some of this code stuff. You mentioned that specifically like Title 8, which houses the ordinance, it currently has exceptions for educational or conservation plantings. Is that kind of exception going to be in the new code? Do you know by chance?
That is a great question, and that has not been discussed. That would be a policy decision by the governing body to weigh in on what does grass mean? I know that there's a lot of communities that are wrestling with some of these, like buffalo grass and some of these naturals. That's a policy decision. The property maintenance code doesn't differentiate that, right? As it exists today, but that's where local amendments to the property maintenance code can be made. I would say talk to council.
So probably not gonna stay as a code, because it is currently code and not policy.
So I would have to,
And I can talk with you guys after.
yeah, I'd have to defer to. Let's talk after
Okay.
and see what's actually in the codes and ordinances today. That may be an opportunity for us to make another local amendment, so I appreciate you bringing that.
Thank you.
Just one thing, this is probably more for Becca than anybody else. I'm just seeing a ton of branches piled up on streets and sidewalks all over the place. Because everybody just assumes, well, the city's gonna come along and take them all away. And the city doesn't do that anymore. Can we get some clear communication on the various social media platforms?
There were several
saying-
posts that were put out about it. I mean, unfortunately, with everything, we've got a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
So our posts get buried pretty quickly. I will send some stuff out in the District 3 for sure. I don't think it's gonna change. Some people are just really thinking that we will eventually cave and do it. We don't have a mechanism for that.
No,
So,
but
Right here.
I've told people a couple times, if you find a tree in the right of way that's got branches underneath it, if you put your branches near them, we have to collect those ones.
So if people just start. Just put the sun out in the street.
But it's gonna get the.
We're pirates down here in District.
I have one more question about codes.
Yeah.
Will this apply to like the alleyways being overgrown? Will it address who's responsible for cleaning it and getting it done? Right now, or are we just gonna start abating them all and letting them go back to the owners to either side?
So. I'm gonna answer
That
it
broad
this way.
question right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer it this way, right? That, for example. Between back of sidewalk and back of curb, right? Often is sort of. It's in the right of way, technically it's in the right of way, it's public property, right, so to speak. But there are other codes and ordinances that talk about it's your responsibility as a property owner to maintain that. The interpretation of the property maintenance code is it's your responsibility to maintain that, even though it's right of way, it's your responsibility to maintain it. Property maintenance code says you gotta maintain according to city codes and ordinances. Alleys are the same way, right? That there are, if you have high weeds and grass or fencing or something up against the alley, then, or even to the center of the alley, generally property owners are responsible to maintain up into the center of the alley.
It's been difficult to get that enforced or follow up on by anybody. Cause the city says, not my problem. And then MABCD can't get it processed through and nobody does anything. We're getting alleys overgrown and what's happening is then people move into them. And then we have a trash problem. They'll come clean up the trash, but they won't clean up the alley. I mean, a lot of.
That's a good one. it's something that we need to work through in our policies and procedures. Again, so that every inspector knows exactly how to handle sort of every scenario. And that's another one I appreciate you bringing to everybody's attention, right? Because a lot of people don't know that and understand that. Technically, an alley is sort of it's just an easement that actually, if we vacate, abandon that alley in that easement, you actually own the center of it. And that's why the interpretation is sort of that maintenance obligation. But that's something absolutely we'll make sure that is incorporated in policy and procedures. Thank you for that.
All right, these guys have tough jobs here, assistant city manager, director of MABCD. They also got families at home, so I do appreciate them.
Now, a few limited comments from Mike.
You're gonna tell them all of it. Limited comments, come on.
We haven't had a late meeting in a while, y'all. We're pretty lucky.
Yeah, but okay, multiply this by 4. And this is the longest council meeting I've had, 10 hours, so 2.5 hours, come on. All right, first and foremost, shout out from the mountaintops, let everybody know, I voted against paid parking. So take your wrath. Take your wrath home, please.
Post that on TV yesterday.
I'll tell you, anytime you ask.
Thank you.
And then, yes, we did also do the free dump for a week that ended last Saturday. I hope people were able to take advantage of that. I'd like to get back to a place where we do go through after a storm and collect branches like that. So I've heard a lot of chirping about Derby does this, Hayesville does this, and whatnot. I think we have the second lowest mill levy in the county, one of the lowest mill levies in the state of Kansas. We don't have a sales tax. County has a sales tax. I hate so keep that in mind as well. Like, I would like to, that's the services that I would like to provide. Have the city provide things like that, but that comes with a price tag. So as we have some of these discussions about taxes and whatnot coming up, something to keep in mind. We are still in stage 2 of the drought. It's a 12-month rolling average. I wouldn't be necessarily against pulling out of it a little early, but we got to get through the summer months before we have that discussion. We could lose up to 2 feet at the Lake Cheney. Once we get into fall, not too many people are watering. We don't necessarily use as much water. So just keep in mind, we are still in drought 2 response here. So we're still watering Thursdays for our side of town. Yeah, we'll just keep pushing through on it, at least through the summer months. Hopefully we get consistent rain and not just major rain events like we got. Just a little bit at a time, especially over Cheney, keep it up there. So I guess keep that in your prayers anyways. Yeah, I did want to talk about fireworks. Tomorrow it starts the aerials. Again, anybody who stood outside on the 4th of July the last 25 years, banning it does not work. Enforcement like that does not work. We do not have the personnel to go around and have somebody in every neighborhood or every couple of neighborhoods waiting. So we do have fire patrols patrolling right now and police patrolling, looking for this, but it's also fire season. Yeah, so we need the firefighters to actually be ready to go out and address any of this. So the 3rd through the 5th, and to be honest, we couldn't control it if we wanted to because it's still legal on the county level. You can go over to Hayesville, you can go over to Derby, you can go over to Goddard and buy them and bring them right back over. We're not gonna be Nazis waiting at the border of Wichita to search everybody's cars for them. And even if the county banned it, Andover's 5 minutes away. So unless the state really takes action and bans it, there's not really gonna be any relief anytime soon. So that's why we did open it up for 3 days. Everybody try and concentrate it in those 3 days, go nuts, do whatever. The week before and the week after, that's when it really grinds a lot of people's gears. I have heard it last night I heard it more than the previous couple of nights. It hasn't been as bad in the past, but that's anecdotal because that's just where I live. A lot of it depends on the quality of neighbors you have. You know, there are some people with lousy neighbors that will shoot it off every day for a week. Report it to the hotline. What that does is that creates hot spots, and that way when we are out on patrol, we try and patrol the areas where we get the most complaints. So if it does happen, please, and it may not even be this year, but we go back and we look at the data the next year. And again, we try and focus on the hot spots where we get a number of these complaints. It has not added on any property damage. Most of the property damage comes from improperly stored fireworks. People think that they're out, they're extinguished, so they put them in the trash can, put the trash can next to the garage or next to the house. Ignites, catches fire. So properly dispose of your fireworks, put them in a big 5-gallon bucket with water, let them sit overnight before you dispose of them any other way. The injuries, honestly, they've stayed about the same as before we did allow aerial fireworks. It's been pretty consistent that way. We go when we look at the hospital data a couple of weeks after. Hospitals take a little bit of time to get their data in order and pass it on to us. And it's been pretty level over the last couple of years. The last thing I want to talk about real quick is we've talked a lot about the budget. We've talked a lot about the deficits that we are facing. I've always cautioned patience because you never know exactly what the true nature is until you get a little closer to it, what the true outlook is. And surprise, surprise, we are not facing a deficit anymore. We are actually have a surplus. Now it's unfortunate because it is on the backs of rising property values that shot up again this year. So there's a lot of people that aren't happy about it. There are some things that the state's looking at to try and slow that down a little bit, county as well. Again, we don't have anything to do with assessments. It's a state, the state does the assessments through the county. So even if I wanted to throw county under the bus, that's actually being insincere as well and not quite honest with you. So the state does control that. They are looking at some things, but here's the discussion that we need to have here. Because we do have about a $2.5 million surplus. And one thing that is being discussed is lowering the mill levy. Now, what this would do is lower the mill levy a $0.5 mil. The mill levy has stayed consistent for over the past 30 plus years. So it's been right about 32 mils that entire time. This would be the first mill levy reduction since the 80s. Here's the flip side of that. If you lower the mill levy a $0.5 mil, I think they said for the average house, which this is astounding to me. The average house in Wichita is $260,000. Like mine's half of that, so, but if you lower it a $0.5 mil for a $260,000 house, you will get $15 savings on your property taxes. So I would get $7 or $8. I get a nice cup of coffee at Starbucks, if I want to add a little sugar and pumpkin spice and whatnot.
That's per year, no?
Per year. Now, so this is a discussion that we had, because during the workshop I brought up some of the complaints that I've heard quite a bit from you guys. Dead tree removal, stump grinding. We're 2 years behind plus all of that. And we see with the storms recently, how we're having to clean up. A lot of those are dead trees that were on them. Spay and neuter clinics for cats and dogs. That's another thing that I brought up. We have a really unfortunate scenario going on at the animal shelter right now. And one of the reasons is because during COVID, we stopped spaying and neutering, or not us, but vets did. So that's another thing we could invest in short term. Also, one of the property taxes programs that we had done is matching the state's homestead tax, which gives a property tax break to senior citizens under a certain economic threshold. We did that 1 year because we had some extra ARPA money. And that's something I would like to see permanent. That's a form of tax relief I think can have some major benefits aside from, again, a cup of coffee. Or 2 cups of coffee if you live in the average cost of a house in Wichita. So I know there's other things as well. Another concern is if you lower it, that $500,000, that's $2 million or so that will be taken out of future budgets as well. If we have, let's say we get to full capacity as far as police officers go, and we say, okay, we still want a few more, we want to backfill the CP positions, get them up to 10. Something like that, we hamstring ourselves with the budget. But at the same time, on the other side of things, you know, I try and consider all the angles here. Some property tax relief might be nice for some people. We are concerned about it. And we do have a discussion coming up that we've been engaging in regarding potentially a sales tax to help with some CIP items, some building items, fire stations, police stations and whatnot, but then also offering some tax relief with that sales tax. That would put some burden on people who are renters, but that would also allow us to trap some money from people that come in. About 25% of sales tax could come from people who do not live in Wichita, but they come here and eat dinner, or they work here during the day, they buy gas here and whatnot. So it's a discussion we'll be having in the future. But property tax relief might be part of that. So if anybody here has any thoughts regarding this now, please speak up, Mike.
Well, I think it's great that you're a surplus. But I want you to put your thinking caps on and figure out what the state's gonna do in the next few years, what the federal government's gonna do. I don't think it'd be a bad idea to have 5 or 6 or 7 million surplus coming up. If it's only gonna cost me $15 a year.
I'm totally against lowering the, no, that seems, yeah, seems silly. Spend the money.
Well, we either spend it on good programs or put it into a rainy day fund.
If we do, and okay, that's another angle I did forget to mention. We have been putting money into the rainy day fund. We have a permanent reserve of over $30 million because we saw these deficits coming. So over the next decade, we are putting $3 million a year from that rainy day fund, that permanent reserve, into our budget. So technically, we aren't even in a surplus right now because we are using that $3 million. We would actually technically be like in a $500,000 deficit. So that's another angle to consider here. And again, like all opinions are valid here. I'd love to hear people's opinions because I need to know what you guys want to see. And I also know that the main complaints I get from people are lack of services. I don't get too many complaints about property taxes in our district, but our district is also over 60% renters as well. So that's also something to consider. There's a lot of things to consider here. And again, you guys can think on it. Again, share opinions if you have them tonight. And if you think of something later on and you'd like to share with us, please shoot it to me. Just that way I have a good feeling of where your guys' thoughts are. Any other opinions tonight, Jeff?
I think lowering the mill just doesn't benefit the majority of the people and will cause a future problem when you have to raise it again. You just leave it the same and use that money appropriately, like helping MABCD get through these cases, have enough money to get rid of the trees and clean up the stuff and clear out the backlogs. And then use it for some other programs that don't have a budget yet or not even thought of yet. Put that aside for, I don't know, firefighters memorial, repairing it. I mean, use that money for stuff that needs to be done instead of
Bridges on Clapboard.
Yeah. And another thing real quick, thank you to Jerry. He's been going out there and they cleaned up a couple of the bridges at Clap Park himself.
Then it rained again.
So yeah, I did wanna give you your flowers on that one as well. Take a.
It needed to be done, so it's done.
Yeah, take a tray of cookies with you for it.
That's with my.
Yeah. Any other thoughts regarding the mill levy or anything else in general? All right, everybody, I expect to see all 10 when you come back here in a month. Please be safe over the 4th of July.
I have a question
Have you
for
heard
Delano.
anything about another grocery chain coming to Wichita?
Not that I've heard. Troy,
Well, somebody actually an employee at Dillon's, because I'm so fed up with them. It said that another chain was thinking about coming here, and it wasn't anything I'm familiar with, but they're affiliated with Albertsons. I don't know how much he knew, but
no.
he said that.
I thought Dillon's was affiliated with.
They tried to merge.
They were trying to merge, it was turned down for trade commission.
I would love to have Safeway.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have him come back.
I would love to have Safeway. Start a petition.
The hotel in Delano area over there, how's that gonna help, Hatman Jack in that area? They're not having the parking issue. Is the hotel going forward? I see the area all taken care of by the ball.
By the ball stadium. They're being built right now. Yeah, they were actually seeing development there, so that's good.
And on the backside of the ball diamond, that whole area is in chaos right now.
Yeah, the back side is the
All being done.
multimodal stuff.
Yeah, there's gonna be like 260 apartments.
On the other side, back where the parking garage.
There's apartments that are.
There's a
I
whole
frequent
big-
that area, so I'm real familiar how messed up all the roads are down there.
Yeah. And relatively affordable apartments too. So, they did get some incentives, but it's affordable. It's not affordable according to like the low income tax standards, but if I remember correctly, they were around $1,200 a month, which again, in today's world, that's.
Well, you know, that area after dark now, there is no parking back there because of all those apartments. There's just bumper to bumper, apartment grass, and the whole area is again chaos.
Yeah, progress.
Yep. Masses of the people.
Yeah. All right, everybody, have a safe and happy 4th. Light off some firecrackers, have some fun, enjoy family, please.
Jared,
So moved.
Seconded.
Aye.
Hey, Staff 3, I'm out for the entire month of July, so if you need anything,
Okay, I got some.
you're contacting Maddie Campbell, put my email out of office if like that.
It's in section 7.
Oh, have fun. You think, go somewhere?
I'm going to Germany for part of it, but I'm just also taking 3 weeks off, if I can.
It's a shame what happened before. Heard about that, right?
I know.
Farm council. Corey.
Corey Buckner.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can be in the backyard.
I'm not. They'll moved him out.
Some stuff in.
Finance.